October 20th, 2024. 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
Introduction. Dear brothers and sisters, in the readings for the 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time Year B, we encounter a profound invitation to embrace a life characterized by selfless service, echoing the very essence of Christ's own ministry. The first reading from Isaiah gives us the prophetic image of the suffering servant, who suffers not as a punishment but as a sacrifice for the sins of many. In our own lives, we are called to emulate this selfless love, offering ourselves in service to others without seeking recognition or reward. Today's responsorial psalm reminds us of the steadfast love of God. The eyes of the Lord are upon those who fear Him, those who hope for His kindness. God's love is the foundation of our hope. In times of difficulty, like the suffering servant, we are called to trust in God's love and care, even when His ways seem mysterious. This trust is a key element of Christian discipleship. Today's second reading from the letter to the Hebrews speaks of Jesus as our great high priest, who empathizes with our weaknesses and invites us to approach the throne of grace with confidence. In our service to others, we draw strength from Christ's example, knowing He intercedes for us and empowers us to follow in His footsteps. Today's Gospel passage from Mark recounts the request of James and John to sit at Jesus' right and left in His glory, prompting a lesson on true greatness and service. Jesus teaches that leadership in His kingdom is marked by humility, servanthood, and a willingness to lay down one's life for others, as He exemplified through His death on the cross. Let us ask ourselves, how can we serve others more selflessly? Where is God calling us to sacrifice for the good of others?
The first reading, Isaiah 53 verses 10 to 11. The first reading of today contains a passage from one of those four so-called songs of the servant of the Yahweh found in the book of prophet Isaiah. This servant of Yahweh is no other than Jesus. In the fourth of these poems, the Passion of Jesus is so vividly described that one would say that the writer witnessed it personally. Yet the poem was written centuries before Jesus came into the world. Only 2 verses of the poem are given in today's first reading. They tell us of the joy that Jesus, the servant of Yahweh, would experience at seeing the outcome of His sufferings. His soul's anguish over, he shall see the light and be content. By His suffering shall my servant justify many, taking their faults on Himself. Isaiah 53 verse 11. Notice how similar the words of this last verse of Isaiah are to the words spoken by Jesus in today's Gospel. By His sufferings shall my servant justify many. Isaiah 53 verse 11. The Son of Man came to give His life as a ransom for many. Mark 10 verse 45. Jesus shows that greatness is not about power or prestige, but self-giving love. The servant offers his life as an atonement for others. This image is a stark contrast to the worldly understanding of greatness and success. The second reading, Hebrews 4 verses 14 to 16. Today's second reading is taken from the letter to the Hebrews, communities of Jews who had become Christians but who felt discouraged on account of persecution and were tempted to revert to Judaism. The author of the letter, a disciple of Paul, long since dead, tells those Jews, and tells us all, that we have no reason to get discouraged in Christian life. The reason is that we have a priest in heaven, Jesus, our high priest, who intercedes for us all times in front of His Father. In ancient Judaism, the high priest had a unique and crucial role in mediating between God and the people, especially during Yom Kippur, when he entered the Holy of Holies to offer sacrifices for the people's sins. The author of Hebrews draws on this imagery, presenting Jesus as a superior high priest who passed through the heavens, unlike the earthly priests who entered a physical temple. This would have resonated with Jewish Christian readers familiar with the Jewish sacrificial system. The author emphasizes that Jesus, while being divine, shared in human weaknesses. This reflects early Christian theology, which taught that Jesus fully experienced human struggles and temptations, but without sinning. This would have comforted early Christians, who were often persecuted and tempted to abandon their faith. The invitation to approach the throne of grace with confidence contrasts with the fear and distance typically associated with approaching God in the Jewish tradition, where direct access to God was limited. In Christian thought, Jesus' sacrifice removed that barrier, allowing believers to approach God personally, which was a radical concept at the time. In today's passage, the author highlights the compassion and mercy of Christ, who intercedes for us before the throne of God. Jesus is not distant or indifferent to our struggles. He shares in our humanity and is with us in our moments of suffering and temptation. Christ's leadership is marked by empathy, not domination. He leads by standing in solidarity with us, which encourages us to approach him with confidence, knowing that he is a source of grace and strength in times of need.
The Gospel Exegesis. Mark 10 verses 35 to 45. James and John, two of Jesus' closest disciples, ask him for positions of power and glory in his kingdom. Matthew, instead, tells us that they made their request through their mother. Her name is Salome. She was one of the several good women who followed Jesus in his preaching tours and provided him with whatever he needed, Mark 15 verse 41, Luke 8 verse 2. She was an aunt of Jesus. Either she or her husband Zebedee were closely related to Mary or to Joseph. James and John were therefore cousins of Jesus, and the two brothers acted cleverly in convincing their mother to put up their request. Jesus would find it hard to deny it to her. There was another reason, besides family ties, that moved two apostles to dare make their request. Jesus had repeatedly given to them signs of special friendship, calling them apart, together with Peter, on several occasions, the following among them. At the healing of Peter's mother-in-law. Mark 1 verse 29. When bringing the daughter of Jairus back to life. Mark 5 verse 37. At Jesus' transfiguration on the mountain. Mark 9 verse 2. They had given up a rather prosperous fishing business to follow him and had proved their faithfulness to him time and again. They did not grudge that Peter be given the top position in his kingdom, but the second and third should go to them. Both mother and sons understood the meaning of Jesus' words sometime later. Salome understood it a few weeks later, when at the foot of the cross, she, together with Mary, Jesus' mother, and her other women, companions, contemplated Jesus' suffering and dying. Mark 15 verse 40. James grasped the full meaning of Jesus' words when some 10 years later Herod beheaded him to please the Jews. Acts 12 verse 1. Jesus redefines what it means to lead and be great. The world often measures success by how much power we accumulate or how many people we control. But Jesus tells us that greatness is not about being served but about serving others. The Son of God himself did not come to be served but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. At the time of Jesus, only a minority of people in the world were free people. The rest of humanity were the slaves of those few. Slaves were not at the mercy of their masters who could treat them as they pleased, buy or sell them, torture or even kill them. Slaves had no rights whatsoever. A slave could obtain freedom in various ways, one of them by paying a large sum of money which few slaves could afford.
This sum of money was called ransom. But all, both free people and slaves according to human standards, had truly become the slaves of the devil by sin. Jesus came to ransom us all and make us God's children. In order to do so, she truly became the servant of everyone. So what lessons we can draw from these readings for our lives today?
Lessons for growth. 1. Selfless service. Jesus emphasizes the importance of serving others selflessly. True greatness comes from serving others and putting their needs before our own. 2. Leadership through humility. Jesus challenges the disciples' understanding of leadership by encouraging humility. A true leader serves others, not one who seeks power and authority for personal gain. 3. Reframing success. Jesus redefines success by highlighting that greatness is achieved through service and humility, not through the pursuit of power and status at the expense of others. 4. Sacrificial love. Jesus underscores the sacrificial nature of love. He serves as an example of sacrificial love by giving his life to others. True love requires sacrifice and putting the needs of others first. 5. Importance of humility. Jesus teaches the disciples the importance of humility by showing that even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Humility is a key characteristic of a true servant leader. 6. Servant leadership. Jesus introduces the concept of servant leadership, where leaders prioritize the well-being of those they lead and serve them with humility and love. True leadership is about serving others and empowering them to reach their full potential. 7. Modeling Christ-like behavior. Jesus sets the ultimate example of how to live a life of service, humility, and love. He calls his followers to emulate his behavior and to embody these values in all aspects of their lives.
Personal questions or actions for today. How do I respond to suffering in my life? Do I see it as something to avoid or as an opportunity for growth and transformation? How willing am I to sacrifice my own comfort for the sake of others, as the suffering servant did? Do I truly believe that Jesus understands my struggles and temptations? How does that belief affect the way I approach him in prayer? In what areas of my life do I need to ask for God's mercy and grace, knowing that Jesus is always ready to help me? In what ways have I sought positions of honor or recognition? How does Jesus' call to serve challenge my understanding of success and greatness? How can I be more intentional about serving others, especially those who may not be able to repay me or offer me anything in return?
Concluding prayer. Let us pray. Loving Father, I come before you today with a heart full of gratitude for your unending love and mercy. As I reflect on your word, I am reminded of the suffering servant, Jesus Christ, who gave his life as a ransom for me. Help me, Lord, to embrace sacrifice with love and to follow in his footsteps, offering myself for the good of others. I trust in your steadfast love, O Lord, as the psalmist reminds me. Even in times of trial, may I always find hope in your care and protection. Strengthen my faith to trust you, especially when I feel weak or uncertain. Jesus, my compassionate high priest, I thank you for understanding my weaknesses and temptations. Give me the courage to approach you with confidence, seeking your mercy and grace in every moment of need. Help me to rely on your strength and not on my own. Lord, teach me true greatness through service. Give me a heart that desires to serve rather than be served. In all that I do, may I be humble and selfless, following your example of love. Let my life reflect your glory through acts of kindness and compassion toward those around me. I surrender myself to you, Lord, Guide me, strengthen me, and help me to live a life that pleases you. Amen.